all of your things ready. Oh, a block. Okay, so I did have a block. So if you don't have a yoga block, you could for today use a small stool, or you could use a couple of books stacked up. I'll show it with my stool too. It just has to be kind of sturdy. Okay. And I think that's it. I don't think we need, no straps or anything. Okay. And we will start seated today. Okay, so you can set up pillows to sit on. You can sit against a wall if you'd like, or a piece of furniture. The main thing is that you're sitting in a way that is comfortable for you, okay? Where you don't feel like you're holding on in your hips, right? So sometimes sitting up on a blanket or pillow can really help. You can always use extra props beneath knees. And you don't have to sit cross-legged. You can sit with your legs in any orientation, okay? Main thing, again, is that you're not feeling any increased pain when you're seated, and that you've made yourself comfortable, okay? And as you sit, let's begin by just kind of looking around and getting oriented to your space. Noticing color, light, texture. You might notice any sounds you hear as well. And then begin noticing your breath as it comes in. You can let your eyes settle in one spot and notice your breath as it goes out. And as you breathe in, maybe you get a little bit taller. And as you breathe out, let's breathe out through the mouth. You can blow out through pursed lips like you're trying to blow out a lot of candles. Getting every bit of air out, but not causing any strain. And as you inhale, let's focus on inhaling 360 degrees. So 3-dimensional breath, all sides. And you can either stay with breathing out through the mouth, or you can close your mouth and breathe out through your nose. And so when we're breathing to make our breath efficient, we are trying to have our rib cage stacked over our pelvis as best as we can, right? So if you take for a moment, if you sit with your pelvis kind of rocked back and your ribs rocked back, so now they're not stacked, just do that for a moment and try to breathe really wide and notice how it feels. Okay, and then come to a more upright, but actually accentuate it, like almost military type stance, really engaged, even pushing the ribs forward. So now the ribs are ahead of the pelvis, and breathe there. You might feel it more up high. Okay, and then just coming to stacking the ribs more over the pelvis. But in a relaxed way, and try a wide breath there. Good. All right, and then if you're sitting up on anything, you could come off of it and just set it to the side, taking your feet out in front of you with your knees bent. And my feet are pretty wide. And I'm going to gently let my knees and hips go side to side. I'm rolling over my feet like windshield wipers that we would normally do on our backs. And just notice as you do this, how each hip feels, right? Does it feel okay with the hip that's internally rotating and the other one is externally rotating? Just notice side to side how that might feel a little bit different. Maybe one is more mobile than the other. Good. Now, if you can stay on one side and sit on that side, do, as long as it doesn't hurt. If it does hurt, you can keep windshield wipering or even prop things up. Okay, so now we're going to move this front leg, maybe take the foot out a little bit, get a little more external rotation on that front leg. Good. You might even lean forward, exhale, and come up. Inhale. And just try that a few times. You can use your hands. And as you're doing this, you're extending your chest outward, so drawing your belly away from the thigh. And if it's too much to lean forward, just stay upright, okay? Good. And now coming up, if we turn our chest more toward the back leg, you can see how that feels for you. And now if I turn my chest this way, then I'm getting a little internal or a lot of internal rotation in this back hip. And just see what that feels like. And you can prop with hands. Make sure you don't have knee pain or hip pain increased as you do this. And then you can come back to the hands to the front, facing the front leg, and just see, can you internally rotate that back leg and lift the foot off the floor? So this is internally rotating the hip as it lifts without having to lean too far forward, right? We're trying to keep upright a bit and breathe. Good. And then let's take your hands behind your back and we'll go to the other side. So now the other leg is in front and you can scoot the foot out if you'd like. And then turning the chest toward the front leg. Inhale, get really long, and exhale a little lean. And repeat any amount, making sure, again, not increasing pain. Okay, and then next time you come up, can try to turn your chest more toward the back leg and see how that feels. Just taking it easy with it, making sure, again, no sharp pains in the knee or anything like that. And now let's try the little lift. So you turn back towards the front knee and then see about lifting up that back foot. The knee stays on the floor. Good. And then coming out of it, leaning back a bit. Let's just put the legs out in front for a moment. Shake, shake, shake. Good. And we're going to come onto hands and knees and just move through a few cats and cows. Good. And now coming back to neutral, in a moment, I think what we'll do to try to do some of that core activation is we'll have our feet against a wall, but you could also probably use a piece of furniture and just put your feet on it or push them into it. Okay, so just know where that is or get closer to it. We won't use it right away. Okay, so first, what we're gonna do is turn to your side seat. So turn onto one hip, okay, doesn't matter which, and then slide the bottom hands down and roll over onto your back. Okay. I'm feeling with your knees bent, you might want head and neck support. We're going to do a little bit of core work here, and so having some head and neck support can be really helpful in that. Okay, so feet and knees are parallel. And let's just do a few pelvic rocks. Exhale, press the low back down. Inhale, rock the pelvis forward any amount, and then repeat a couple of times. Good. And then trying to find a little bit of a neutral, it might not be totally neutral pelvis, but somewhere between the two. Okay. And then placing your hands on your lower belly. So I've got the heels of my hands on my hip bones, and then my fingers are coming down and just above my pubic bone. Okay. And I'm going to inhale, a wide inhale. And then as I exhale, I'm going to exhale as though I'm zippering up my pants from my pubic bone upwards. So it's almost like a little bit of a Kegel exercise, and then engaging the muscles of this lower belly region. Okay, and your fingers are there to try to feel if you're doing it. Okay, and then repeat. So you inhale, you can relax that area. And then as you exhale, as though you're lifting from the pelvic floor if you can, and then almost like you're zipping up your pants. So you've got those lower belly muscles engaged, and you're just trying to connect your brain there, okay? Let's repeat, doing it several times. As you do this, you're not changing the orientation of your pelvis. So you're not then pushing your pelvis back onto the floor or your low back down. You're just keeping it in neutral. So we're doing this to try to train these muscles to work and turn on and I know they're turning on in everybody, but do we have them turning on when we want them to? And so the more we connect our brain there, the more likely they are to do that when we want them to. Now you can dig around with your fingers. And this can take a while to get. So if you're not getting it today, don't fret. With practice, you will. Good. Okay. Now we're going to take our hands behind our head. And we're going to try to keep that engagement happening. So same thing's going to happen in the lower belly. And when we lift up, so we'll be lifting on the exhale, still work from the pelvic floor, zipping up the pants. And also we're going to relax the neck, lifting the sternum toward the ceiling. So your nose will face the ceiling. And then inhale, lower back down, and we'll repeat. So it's different than than the core work we do a lot where our elbows come around our ears. Instead, the elbows are going to stay wide. And as you exhale from the pelvic floor, feel like sternum is going to stay facing the ceiling rather than looking between the knees with your eyes. Okay, so straight upward, but relaxing the neck, and go slowly so you can feel the engagement of the lower belly. Try to relax your jaw and your face. And although you're not pressing your belly button to the spine or to the floor, it is a sense of moving downward with the abdominals rather than poofing upward. Okay. So if you can see your belly a little bit, even though we're looking towards ceiling, you might just sneak a look. You might notice, is it poofing up in the middle toward the ceiling, or are you able to keep that sense of the zippering up the pants, getting those deeper abdominal muscles? Relaxing your jaw. One more. Okay. And then pausing. Good. Okay, now from here, we're going to do a little bit of crossing over, but I don't want you to think about taking elbow to opposite knee. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to inhale, I'm going to exhale beginning the same way, and then I'm going to inhale, holding, and exhale, I'm going to think about taking my sternum to face the right, and inhaling, center, sternum faces ceiling, exhale, sternum to face the left slightly. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can join me. It's an exhale to come up. You're trying to keep that zipper zipped up as you move, keeping the elbows wide so they're not crossing over the midline. And it's your sternum that's turning, relaxing your neck, relaxing your jaw. Feet are grounded, and you're not forcing anything. Okay, if you have to take a break, take a break. Good, and back to the center and down. Can spread the arms and windshield wiper the knees side to side. Okay, now if you need to relocate to get to your wall or your piece of furniture, you can do that now. So I'm just going to turn around and use the wall. I'm going to roll to my side and then press up, coming onto hands and knees, just like we came down. And so what we want for this position is probably head and neck support at first. And we want our legs at a 90-degree bend. Right, so gauging how far away to be from the wall or your piece of furniture where you've got a 90-degree bend. And the first thing we're going to do here is rock the pelvis a little bit, just like we did when our feet were on the floor. Okay, so exhale, pressing low back down. Inhale, rocking forward, noticing how that feels through your low back. Might notice your head nodding as well. Good, and then finding that neutral-like position, like we did with the feet on the floor. And I'm realizing I need to move just a tiny bit away so that when I put my heels of my hands on my pubic bones, my fingertips are right above my pelvic, my pubic bone, and they're on the same plane. So my pubic bone isn't tilted upward, okay? So it's in neutral. And now I'm gonna try the same thing I did on the floor. So I'm gonna inhale, and then as I exhale, zippering up, trying to feel with my fingers that my lower abdominals are engaged. Good. And then inhale, relax. And again, feeling like it's moving up from the pelvic floor, engaging those muscles on the exhale. Now, what you can try to do, so this is like a remedial dead bug, to really learn to activate the functional core, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same thing I'm doing, but as I exhale, I'm gonna zip up from the pelvic floor, engage, make sure I've got those engaged, and then just very gently take the foot away from the wall without using my hip flexor muscles really at all. I'm supporting it with the core. Of course, the hip flexor muscles are inherently being used because you're taking your leg your hip to move past 90 degrees. So they're involved, but it's the core that's mainly doing it, or those deep abdominals. I'm just gonna alternate sides. So on the exhale, really trying to get that engagement and the foot just coming away from the wall. And I'm not even taking my low back really out of neutral. I'm trying to keep it in neutral. And it's such a small movement. It's all about neuromuscular training. It's not about a lot of core work here. We're about training the brain to be connected to these muscles. So hunt around with your fingers, that can really help. Okay. All right. Let's take a break and just let the knees fall open for a moment. So I've got the sides of my feet on the wall. Take a breath or two. All right. I'm going to take my feet up toward the ceiling, or my legs up toward the ceiling. That feels okay. So they come off of your furniture or your wall. And I'm going to try this movement where I am lifting my tail off the floor on the exhale, lifting a bit of my sacrum off the floor, but you might not get that far. It's like I'm stamping the soles of my feet on the ceiling. So I'm going to do it. You can put your arms at your sides if you want. Inhale, and I'm just exhale. Try to do a little lift. And you can also do this with knees bent if it feels, if you're really tight in the legs, it might just feel better. You can even breathe out your mouth. A couple more. Good. And then you can place your feet back on the wall. If you're not using a wall, if you're using a chair, a piece of furniture, for this one, you want to dig your heels down into that piece of furniture, okay? For me, I'm at 90 degrees at the wall. I'm going to stay there. And take away any pillow or blanket from beneath your head, okay? I'm going to inhale, press my low back to the floor, and start to peel my tail off the floor, lifting my hips up any amount. Now, I could come up a lot higher if I wanted, as long as it's not overstretching my neck. That's why I took the blanket away. Or I could stay a little low, and then I'm going to exhale, lower down the spine. Just doing a few of these. Okay, so you're inhale, rolling up, pressing into the balls of the big toes, coming up any amount. And exhale, lowering down. Now, when I'm doing this against the wall, I'm pushing my feet flat into the wall, so I'm feeling it more in my thighs, in the front of my thighs. But if you are on a chair, your heels are pressing down, I want you to be feeling it more in your hamstrings. And in fact, I'm going to try to turn more of my hamstrings on now too. I might even put my heels on the wall so I can feel that. And do one or two more. Good. And then next time you come down, you might like to bring both knees in towards your belly and give them a hug above or below the knees. You might like to rock side to side. Good. And then you can let your feet come down. You can roll to the side, or you can rock yourself up if you prefer. And let's come away from the wall or any furniture you're using. And I'm going to come onto our side. Now, you might need a pillow or a block. Let's, just for the sake of doing the same side, let's do lying on your right. Okay. Now, in one of the programs I'm using to record, it mirrors me, and the other one it doesn't, right? So I'm just going to do my right, but it might look opposite to you, okay? And then what I'm going to do is bring my bottom knee forward so that it's straight out from my hip. And my top leg, I'm going to straighten out on the ground. Okay? And you can get your arm and head configured however it's best. And what I'm going to do now is try to lift my foot off the floor and bring it back down while keeping my knee on the floor and my thigh. So an active external rotation of that right leg. And mostly people, including myself, to do this, we tend to invert the ankle, or evert, I think this is, of the ankle. I'm going to try to keep the sole of my foot facing the side so my foot is just in regular dorsiflexion. And you start to get a little bit of fatigue. Okay. And then lifting it up, and you can prop yourself up to do this on your forearm, and then getting a hold of it with your left hand if you can reach your ankle. And now pulling it up, not forcing it, of course, right? Just coming into a passive external rotation and seeing where that is for you. Good. And now if you were to let go, you might fall down a little bit, but could it stay somewhat there? Keep breathing. Good, and then bring it down, and we'll do that one more time. Okay, so we'll inhale, exhale. Can you lift it? Get a hold of it. Bring it up higher, perhaps. This time, let's lower back down onto your neck support. Okay, and then try to leave it there. And then inhale, could you lift the left leg off the floor? It takes a little balance here. And exhale, maybe even take that left leg behind your back, engaging your glute muscle here. Breathing, and then bring the left leg forward and down, right foot down. And we'll bend both knees, press yourself up, and spin around to the other side. Getting whatever head and neck support you want. Okay, we'll start low. So your left shin is parallel to your mat and coming straight, knee coming out from hip. Okay, top leg straight, lined up, ear, shoulder, hip, ankle. And then when you're ready, just trying to lift this foot off the floor while keeping the knee down. It might be different on this side. I'm noticing I have less range, active range here. I could go in up and down with my breath. And then you can bring it up and just prop yourself up on your forearm and then get a hold of it if you can. Okay. So a passive stretch here. And then maybe you can let go and leave it there. Notice where it is. And bring it down. And we'll try that again. So we'll exhale, try to lift it, get a hold of it, bring it up. Good. Okay, now you can try lowering back down. You can also stay up if you prefer. Okay, and we'll let go. I forgot to let go. And lift the right leg off the floor. Maybe even take it behind your back, extending that hip. Keep breathing. Good, and then bring that back leg up, back to center, and everything down. Good. And then prop ourselves back up. I'm going to spin around to the first side. This time, any head and neck support. I'm going to calm down, and this time the legs are different. So the knees are stacked, and they're at more of a 45-degree, or actually wider, maybe a 60-degree angle from your belly. Feet are together. And for this one, if I had you with me in person, I might, with your permission, come up behind you to keep your hips totally stacked. So that means that top hip, and you can try it right now so you can test it out, let that top hip kind of fall back a bit, right? So we're looking to not do that. We're going to try to keep the hips straight on top of one another as we do a few clamshells, okay? So we're going to keep the feet together. And notice if I open my knee too far, further than I can, without my top hip went back. Okay? So where's that spot for you? So you're going to stay, it might be that you don't open very much, and that's okay. All right? Because we're going to try to strengthen those glute muscles. And if you're doing this, you're not going to strengthen them, okay? So coming up, going down. You can even put your hand there so that you can keep yourself honest, right? And notice. And you might feel this in your butt muscles. You might feel it on the outer thigh area as well. Good. And then coming down. And this time we're going to lift that top leg just a little bit. So now that the shins are parallel. And this will be our starting point, okay, and our closing point. So I'm going to keep my hand here, and I'm going to open the knee and close it back to this point. Open the knee, close it back to this point. Okay, keep breathing. All right. And now let that leg come down. We're going to come onto our backs with our knees bent. And inhale, reach the left leg up toward the ceiling. Exhale, crossing the ankle over the right thigh. Good. Now, for some people, this will be enough of a stretch, pushing the knee away. Or you can thread the needle here, lifting the foot off the floor, clasping behind the right leg, or even putting the right foot on a chair or the wall. Good. Taking a couple of breaths here. And now let's slowly release the right foot back down and the left. And now you can roll over to face the other way, or you can flip your body around. Just depends on where you want to be. All right. So we'll start with our head and neck supported, our knees stacked, about a 60-degree angle or so. I'm going to put my hand on my hip to feel that I'm not going to roll back. And starting with feet together, open and close. Try to get a sense of when you roll back like this, and just try to keep that from happening. It's okay if it's a small movement. And you might even, if you put your hands on your glute muscles, you might feel them contracting. Good. And then resting. Of course, you can always keep going if you prefer. And then the next one is when we stack or float the shins parallel. This will be our start and end point. You can, again, keep yourself honest by keeping your hand there on your glutes, and begin when you're ready. So it's still like a clamshell. You're still opening the inner knee and then closing it, but it's just going back to that floating position. And whenever you're ready, it can be done. And coming on to the back. We'll inhale to reach that right leg up toward the ceiling. Exhale to cross the ankle over the left thigh, perhaps a gentle press away or a thread the needle. See if you can soften through your jaw. And checking in here, checking in on all levels, your physical body, your breath, energy level, mental and emotional body. Just trying to stay present with whatever your experience is. You can release that whenever you're ready. You can roll over to one side and gently press yourself up. Coming onto your hands and knees, we'll slowly walk the hands back. Bear get up. And then rise up. And when you get up, you can reach the arms up toward the ceiling. And exhale, bring them out to the sides and down. Good. And again. Good. One more time. Good. All right. Then just letting your arms hang. Kind of shake them out, let them hang. And let's do a few bounces as though you were on a little mini trampoline. Just bounce, 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 bounce. Yeah. Let your knees be soft. Let everything kind of just be loose as you do it. You could even hop if you wanted to. I mean, everybody's going to have a different comfort level here, okay? Or you could just bounce, keeping the balls of your feet on the floor the whole time. A few more. And then pause and notice how you feel, your connection with the floor to the ground. So getting grounded. Find something to look at in front of you that attracts your eyes, just letting your eyes soften. And feeling your breath go in, that 3-dimensional breath. And long exhale out the mouth. And again. All right, now let's work with rolling the ankles by tracing the perimeter of one of your feet. So you can let your head hang in this position so that you can see your ankle and just notice where you're tight or where you have mobility and where you don't. It helps your brain to get it that way. And then you can reverse directions too. Letting the hip and the knee move. Good. And just after doing that one side, let's pause on both feet and notice how they feel different. And then we'll go for the second side. Same thing, you can look at your foot, an ankle. Noticing how this one might feel different than the first side, and then reverse directions. Good. All right. And then standing on both feet again, noticing. Wiggle your toes around a little bit, like you're kneading the floor, like a cat does with its paws. All right, and we're gonna get our block now. So again, you can use a stack of books if you don't have blocks. I do recommend getting blocks. Or you can also use a stool for this. So I'll show it with both, a sturdy stool. You'll need at your side either your wall or your chair, something to put your hand on, okay? I'm gonna show it with the block first, and then I'll show the stool too. Okay, so I'm just gonna put my block on the floor next to my balance support. And then I'm going to stand on that block with the leg that's closest to the balance support. Okay. And I'm going to try not to lean into my balance support. So it's just there to support. Okay. And then I'm going to start swinging the other leg. And I'll show this with the chair as well, so it can be done with the chair or the wall. So just that sometimes the chair feels too low if you're tall. And you can swing this any amount, okay? Just any amount. Sometimes just standing on a block alone could be a big task, okay? That can be a lot of balance. Okay. A few more. You're using you guys, the inside leg is on the block, the outside leg is swinging. And then from here, and you'll see why in a moment, okay? Now let's let that leg stop swinging. Just notice the two sides. So I've just got my ball of foot on the floor for a little prop for the moment, but in a moment I'm not gonna put that foot on the floor at all. It's gonna only float. It might graze it. And you'll notice if I put my hands on my hips, my inside hip is higher than my outside hip, right? It's higher up because my outside leg is hanging. And then what I'm gonna do, and you can just hold the chair with the inside hand, is I'm going to press into my standing foot to bring the hips even, and then let it hang. Bring it even, let it hang. Now the key here though, and I can't see you well enough to see if you're doing it or not, the key here is to have both legs straight. Okay, so you're not bending like this and lifting up, bending, no. You're keeping that standing leg straight and you're pushing into the foot to lift the hip up and drop it down. So this gets into, all this stuff so far that we've been getting into, or at least with the hips, is for last week, we were talking about strengthening the hips to help the knee stay aligned properly, right? We were talking about some issues with pain on the inside of the knee. So strengthening the outer hip in this way, these are called pelvic lifts, can be really helpful for that. I'm already super tired here working this hip. Okay, so I'm feeling it here. You might also feel it running down the leg. Okay, good. And now let's come down, step off, and just notice the two sides. Breathing in and out. All right, let's do the other side. So if you're at the wall, you can turn around. I'm going to keep using my chair. Oh, I said I would show it with the stool too. It's the same thing, really. Now my chair is going to be way too low. I would probably use the wall. But it's the same thing. You could use a stool. This one's funky because it's not flat. Okay, but I think I can still do it. Okay, I cannot reach the chair, but you get the idea, right? I would swing the outside leg. Be the same thing. You can do this on a step. These are great activities to do before you go for a walk. And you can do it on a stair or anything with a little height. Okay, so we're swinging that outside leg, noticing how it feels. How much does this one want to swing? Yeah, you might notice your arm is like you're marching, right? It's going the opposite. and that kind of feels good, doesn't it, after all that work this hip did? Okay, and now let's come to the center, and you can put a little kickstand down for a moment, right? Noticing that inside hip is higher up than your outside hip, right? And then both legs are going to stay straight. We're not going to put weight on that bottom foot when we come down. So when we lift up, we don't, put weight back down. It floats, okay? So just get started with the pelvic lifts on this side whenever you're ready. You're pushing down into the standing leg and lifting the outer hip even. Sometimes I go a little higher with it, but you don't have to. I don't want you to use your waist muscles for this. And boy, I guess I needed this because mine are getting tired really quickly today. Just straight up and down, right? No leaning. I can't see you guys well enough to tell, but we're not leaning. We're not trying to go twisting forward or back. We're not bending the leg. And if you're feeling it in your outer hip or outer leg, you're probably doing it right. Couple more. Good. And then let's come down. Good. You can get your stool or your block or your books out of the way. And let's just keep your chair or your wall on the same side. Okay. I'm going to use it for this one too. Let us inhale, stand tall, and exhale. I'm going to cross my outside foot and leg behind. And you see what I'm doing with my toes is I'm tucking them under. You don't have to have it close like this. I actually have mine a little bit back, okay? So it's cross behind, toes tucked under, okay? Hips face forward, okay? Then inhale, the outside arm can stretch up, way up. And then exhale, I'm using my chair for support and to allow my bottom shoulder to come down as I lean toward the chair, stretching this whole side. And a little bit, for me anyway, it's getting some of the area that I just worked. It's kind of opening that up. It may or may not be for you. It's okay. And relax that bottom shoulder, breathing, feeling like you're separating and creating mobility in your ribs with your breath. Good. And then let's inhale up and exhale down. Good. Now you can step onto both feet and either turn your body around or move your prop to the other side. Okay. Outside leg crosses behind with toes tucked, upright, right? And then inhale, reaching outside arm up. And exhale, you're pushing the hips away from your chair as you lean, letting the neck relax. Bottom shoulder falls away from ear. So I've got my elbow bent down here. Good. Think about creating mobility in your thoracic area, ribs, spine, the whole zone with your breath. Good, then let's inhale, rise back up, and exhale, bring that arm down, stepping onto both feet. I'm going to turn toward the back of the chair. If you're at the wall, you can use the wall too. And I'm just going to step away into a chair downward dog or a wall downward dog and breathe. Good, and then bending the knees and walking forward. Noticing how you feel. So just tuning in to the feet, standing tall as though you're being expanded upward and pressing down, downward. Noticing all the sensations. All right, I'm going to turn the seat of the chair toward us. Some people might need to use the back of the chair instead. I'm going to take the feet wide. So if you want to be on your sticky mat for this, of course, you can put the chair on the other edge, right? And your feet could be on the sticky mat. Mine are off of mine right now, but I'm not too slippy. I'm taking them pretty wide, okay? I'm going to inhale, stand tall. I'm going to exhale, hinge at the hips and place my hands on the chair. Now, you're welcome to bend the knees a little bit if that feels better in your body, okay? Because you want to be able to feel. In fact, let's try this, you guys. Let's let the knees soften and try to cat and cow in this position. So inhale, tail up. Exhale, tail under, and repeat. And you can do the whole, I'm kind of doing my whole spine a little bit, but you could just do the pelvis area too. Now notice, can you get the tail up at all, right? If you're having trouble getting your tail up like this, tilted up like you had a big bushy squirrel tail, try bending the knees a little bit and see if that helps, okay? If you're more mobile, you might want to come down to forearms instead onto your chair. That's fine too, okay? I'm going to keep the chest reaching forward, and I'm going to just hip shift. So if you imagine you were balancing a teacup on your sacrum area, right here where my hand is, one side, it would spill. My teacup would spill because I'm shifting to one side, that side goes higher, then I shift to the other. But my knees stay the same amount of straight or bent. They're not changing. And I want you to have your hands or your arms raised up on something. I mean, try it. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. But just see how that feels, because it might allow you to get length through your spine more, which is what we're going for in this one, rather than rounding. Okay. Good. So this is a nice one for the pelvic and hip area. Kind of loosen stuff up back there. And this position in Sanskrit, and I'm going to probably have the pronunciation off, is Prasarita Padmottanasana. I think it might be Prasarita Padmottanasana, but anyway, it's a wide-legged forward fold, right? Okay, now we're going to change it a little bit. Instead of doing the hip shift, let's do more of an adductor stretch, so an inner thigh. So I'm bending one knee and then the other. I've just got my hands on the chair as I'm doing it, but this is what it is. And you can turn the feet if you want to. Try to press the knees outward as it bends. Press it outward. And you can go higher up with your hands up higher, or you can go lower down. Just keep breathing. Good. All right, and then coming to center, you can turn the feet parallel. Now we stayed upright, but if you want to fold down, you can still use the chair, but you could fold and let the back round a little bit and see how this feels in your back. Knees can be bent or straight. Breathing in, and then as you exhale, if your top of your head could face the ceiling, not the ceiling, the floor, you can imagine that it's almost like a faucet you're opening up, and you're just going to let anything flow out of your head that might be getting in the way of you feeling at peace lately. Just imagine letting it go. Good. And then whenever you're ready to, you might want to bring your hands back to the chair to come down. I'm just going to bend the knees, and I'm going to put them down on the floor. Okay. Now, I'm going to do legs over the chair for a rest. You're welcome to too. If you don't want to do that, you can do another type of shavasana. I like to put my legs through this little hole. If you're using a dining chair, it's nice to turn it to the side. And I always like to use my blankets and pillows. I like a blanket over me, something below my neck. So you want to try to get comfortable. If there's any last positions that poses, asanas, we call them in yoga, postures, feel free to do them. Sometimes just the weight of a blanket or another prop over you can help you feel more grounded, protected. It can help ease anxiety or restlessness. And whenever you get there, try to get yourself feeling as supported as you can with the props that you have. And maybe take a sigh, allowing your inner thighs to relax. Might move your shoulder blades down your back, away from your ears. Noticing all the places where you're making contact with the props and the chair and the floor. And feeling for releasing onto that support as best as you can. Are there any areas that you might be holding up a little bit against gravity, and feel for inviting them to let go? Your tongue, your jaw, your eyes, your hands, shoulders, hips, belly. Legs, ankles, feet. And again, dropping in a little bit further if you can. And I invite you to stay there as long as you have time for. Just doing a little bit longer of a relaxation can be helpful. But I will leave you here, and thank you so much for joining me today.